Hey guys, Kit Coyote here. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how I made this wolf mask without a cat mask base. If you don't know me, I am Kit, I'm a canine polytherian, and I make masks and animal ears, and I sell them on my Etsy at Wild Things by Kit. I'll link my account in the description. This is my cat Meeps. She likes to make appearances in my videos. Yeah, this is my first full-length tutorial video, so it was a lot of trial and error. The footage is not the best, but I am trying my best to explain it in the voiceover. It is turning out a lot longer than I intended, but I think it's some good content. So anyway, here's the mask we're going to make, and on to the video. So to make the base for your mask, you're going to need some cardboard. I'm just using the cardboard from the box my hamster's bedding comes in. You also need some paper or some cardstock to make the templates you're going to cut out of the cardboard. You'll need some scissors and a box cutter or craft knife. You need some felt. I just get mine at Joann. It's about $4 for a yard. You'll need some 3mm EVA foam or equivalent. Craft foam works, but it's a little bit more fragile, so you have to be more careful. You'll need some masking tape, and you will need a hot glue gun and a lot of hot glue sticks. I buy mine in bulk because I go through a bag in like 2 masks. Here are the template pieces you are going to want. These are for a wolf mask. They are the exact ones I used on this project. If you're trying to make a feline, you can shorten the nose piece, that's the one on the right, but this tutorial is for pretty much any canine. You can adjust the shapes if you need. Once you have your pattern pieces cut out from your paper or cardstock, you are going to want to trace them onto your cardboard. And you're going to cut out 2 of the one that says ×2 and 1 of all of the others. Ideally, you're going to want the long edge of this piece to go along perpendicular to the grain of the cardboard, so the way it naturally bends. You'll see why later. This is the forehead piece. It doesn't really need to face a particular direction, but perpendicular to the lines on the cardboard is probably ideal. This is the piece for the muzzle. You want the line of the side of the muzzle to go in the same direction as the lines on the cardboard. This long piece is the top of the head, and you're going to want it running against the grain of the cardboard. Once you have your shapes traced out, you are going to cut them out with a box cutter. I have this little cutting mat that makes it easier to cut on without damaging my floor, but just make sure you're cutting on top of something you don't mind if you accidentally cut. Please don't cut towards yourself. I know I do in the recording. Don't do that. It was dumb. You can get hurt. Once you have all your pieces cut out, you're going to start bending them along the way that the cardboard naturally bends. So, for most pieces, this is going to be the long way. Once you've bent your nose piece, you're going to fold the 2 tabs in and glue it so that it makes kind of a snout shape. You're going to want to use hot glue here as shown, and just make sure it's in the shape you like before you glue it. The tab on top folds down to cover the gap. I like to cover all of my seams in masking tape just because it strengthens it and helps keep the seams from showing through when you felt it. Now you're going to start bending the edges of the snout like you see in the video. This is so that it can attach more seamlessly to the cheeks. Now you can see I'm attaching the cheek part. The diagonal line lines up with the snout. You can kind of see I'm bending it. And you're just going to stick a piece of masking tape to one of the sides, put some glue on it, and glue the two together. The masking tape just helps to hold it while it dries. And you're just going to do the same thing on the other side. Now you're going to take your forehead piece, this is the one that looks kind of like a weird T, and you're going to bend it both directions, and you can kind of see how it lines up with the snout. The little tab on the snout glues nicely to the end of the forehead piece. Now the last piece you're going to add is the top of the head. I do this by gluing on a couple pieces of masking tape, gluing each side instead of just gluing the two cardboard edges together, because this gives more surface area for the glue to actually bond to. You're going to bend the two tabs of the forehead over so that they overlap with the top of the head just a little bit, and tape and glue them down. Now you're going to attach the sides of the head to the cheeks, and there's a nice big surface area for this, so you're just going to spread a whole bunch of glue on there and glue it down. Down, you're going to go in with your scissors and trim it. The pattern pieces aren't really the shape of the jaw, so you're going to trim it in the way that you want it so that it looks nice and rounded. Cover all remaining seams in masking tape to smooth them out, and you are done with the cardboard part of the base. Now just trim the edges to your liking, and you're done with this part. In order to get the eyes into a shape that you want, you're going to trace out the shape with a marker and use your box cutter to carve it out. If there's a gap in the area where the eye is where you don't want there to be a gap, then you're going to just put some masking tape on top of it and fold it over. You're also going to want to cover all cut edges with masking tape, at least if they are jagged at all, because you don't want to be able to see that through your felt. Now to make your ears, you're going to take your mask and line it up with a piece of cardstock and trace out the shape you want your ears to be. I made mine kind of small because wolves don't realistically have super large ears, but you can make them whatever size or shape you want to go wild with that one. Now cut it out of your cardstock or paper. Trim the bottom of your ear so that it's kind of like a very wide C shape. Those edges are going to curve over to make it a 3D shape when you glue the ear on. Now you're going to cut your ears out of your 3mm EVA foam. If you don't really care about your ears being flexible, you can use cardboard for this as well, but I prefer to use foam because it's softer and it makes shipping easier. You want to leave a little bit extra on one side so that it doesn't seem smaller when you bend it. You're also going to cut 2 slits into the ear. You're going to repeat this process with the other ear. You can just trace the original one to cut it out. It's a bit easier than just using the cardstock. Now, the process of gluing the ears did not record properly, but I'm kind of showing it in this clip here. You're just going to glue down one of the tabs to make a sort of concave shape. Felt your base, you are going to start at the nose and glue down a corner of your felt. Once you have the nose glued down, you can smooth down the felt around it and cut a margin around it so that you have enough to glue down on the other side. You want more felt here than less, so make sure you cut far enough around your actual cardboard. Now you're going to start gluing it down, starting with the snout. Use plenty of glue here, and make sure that you get the felt down before the glue dries at all, otherwise it will be a little bit lumpy. Now you're going to do the sides of the nose. Just follow the same process, gluing it and stretching it so that you don't get wrinkles. Do the tip of the nose, you're going to glue the two pieces of felt together. We'll deal with that later. Here I am cutting out the eyebrows. You're just going to want kind of a circular sort of shape. This is just so that it protrudes slightly under the felt. You're just going to glue down those eyebrow pieces and continue felting. It's pretty much the same process all the way through for the felting. You're going to glue all the way around the eyes and leave the felt over the eyes. We will cut this out in a future step. Stretching the felt as you go helps prevent wrinkles, but if you do get a wrinkle or two, it's not a big deal, it happens. Once you've glued down all of your felt to your cardboard, you're going to glue around the edges and fold the felt over onto the inside of the mask. With the tip of the nose, you're just going to squirt in a whole bunch of glue between those two pieces and then trim it. It's okay if the felt looks a little bit funky on the nose because we are going to cover that with an actual nose. You are going to cut out the eyes now. Just cut a slit in the felt from one side to the other. Leave a little bit of felt around the rim so that you can have enough to fold over. Once you've gotten a hole with your box cutter or the tips of your scissors, you're just going to cut it with scissors. You're going to make kind of a cross pattern and then fold over each of the corners. And of course, glue them down. Alright, so now you're going to felt your ears. Take the EVA foam ear that you made earlier, well, the ears, there's two of them, obviously, and just put it down on your felt. Put a bunch of hot glue on one side of the ear and glue it down. Now you're going to put some glue on the top side of the ear and fold it over so that it is glued down to the felt. Now you're going to cut out your ear and put some glue into the gaps between the two pieces of felt and trim it to size. When you're done, you should have an ear that is nicely covered in felt and has no gaps. You're going to repeat this process with the other ear. Now you are going to glue your ears onto the rest of your mask. The reason you felt the ears first is because it looks nicer, it's easier to get less wrinkles, and I've noticed that felt sticks better to felt than cardboard does to EVA foam. I had a bit of a hard time with this one because I was using the glue that I bought in bulk. You're going to want actually good quality hot glue for this, but if you don't have it, then just make sure you hold it long enough for it to completely dry before you let go. Now that our base is done, we can start painting. For this, you're going to need acrylic paint and water, and some paint brushes. I'm using an airbrush and some fabric softener to mix in with my paint, but neither of these are required. I just find them useful. I will link the airbrush I use in the description, and the fabric softener I use is just a generic dollar store fabric softener. Here I'm just prepping my paint. I'm just mixing some black paint with some water. This is when you can mix in some fabric softener as well if you want to make the paint softer on the felt. Yeah, I'm just mixing some colors. You're going to want your paint to be kind of watery, sort of like a milky consistency, if that makes sense. If your paint is too thick, then it's going to be patchy, same as if your paint is too thin. You kind of want that happy medium. All I'm doing here is airbrushing in the darker parts of the coat pattern. I just have a reference image pulled up on my iPad. You can really paint however you want. I was going for a more realistic look, so I found a specific reference, but you can really do whatever you want with the colors. You can see here when I'm done with the airbrushing, I like to go back in with a paintbrush to define some of the shapes, and darken some of the colors that the airbrush kept kind of light. Alright, so now you're going to make the nose. All you need for this is some air dry clay. I just used some clay I had lying around from when I used to do some sculpting. You can use pretty much anything as long as it dries without being baked. And just make a ball of clay, shape it roughly into a nose. It's not the easiest, it's kind of a learning curve. You're going to want to push it up against your mask to make sure it fits properly, cut off the excess, and keep sculpting, and sculpting, and sculpting. It's going to take a while. I like to use the end of a paintbrush to kind of hollow out the inside of the nose so that I can put in like nose jewelry later. I like to give some of my masks a septum piercing. So yeah, once it's roughly shaped, you're just going to set it aside and wait for it to dry. I also made some teeth at the same time because I had the clay out. You can do this too if you like the look of teeth on your mask. Once your nose is completely dry, this took mine about a couple days. Yours might dry faster or slower, depends on the clay you use. You're going to start carving. This is optional if you don't have carving tools around, but you can use just like a box cutter and it'll work fine, just make sure you're safe. So pretty much all I'm doing here is carving some of the details back into the nose because I couldn't get the greatest detail when I was sculpting it. If you're better at sculpting than I am, then you probably don't even need to do this step. I just find that it helps my limited sculpting skills. Once your nose is carved, you're going to sand it. And this is very important, again, if your sculpting isn't the greatest, because it helps smooth it out and make it look less lumpy when you paint it in the end. I'm also sanding down the teeth I made just to make them a little bit smoother. The block I'm using there is just a nail buffing block. I had some in the drawer, I guess, that my mom bought at one point, so I stole it and it works great for sanding down clay. You probably want to wear a mask during this time, just like the kind of masks we all wore during 2020 will probably work fine. You just don't want to be breathing in clay dust. Now it's time to glue the nose on. So it's pretty self-explanatory. You're just going to squirt a whole bunch of glue into the back of the nose and stick it onto the face. And you can see here I'm just gluing a strip of black felt around the nose. It helps hold it on and hide the seam, and I just think it looks better than the raw edge. Now for the fur. I'm using this fake fur that I got from an Etsy seller. I got it in like a scrap box. It's great for masks. I will link it if I can find the seller. But you're just going to cut out a couple rectangles of fur that is about the length of the cheek of your mask and glue it on. You're going to want the fur side to be facing out, so that's the side that you are gluing down. You can kind of see it here. But yeah, pretty self-explanatory, just glue the fur on. And you can trim it so it's the shape that you want. Just make sure you're only cutting the backing, because otherwise you will clip the fibers and it won't look great. Now we're going to do the ears. I like to use the little tufts that I trimmed off of the cheeks, put in the corner of the ear like that. And a bigger piece with the fur facing to the side, not up, or the other inside of the ear part. This is just how I do it because I like how it looks. There are many other ways to do it, and feel free to experiment. Now you're going to paint the nose. Just take some paint, mix in a tiny bit of water to make it spread a little bit easier if yours is gloopy like mine is, and then just paint the nose. Because I had the black paint out, I just added a few finishing touches to the nose because I wanted it to be a little bit darker. You don't have to do this again, I just wanted to because I didn't like how the color was. Now it's time for lining. This is my least favorite part, if I'm being entirely honest, but it is also one of the things that makes your masks like high quality and comfortable to wear. It's one of the main selling points besides how it looks. So I definitely recommend lining it. What I'm doing here is just gluing down a scrap of upholstery foam and some rectangles of felt. The felt helps hide the feeling of the cardboard and makes it generally a little bit more comfortable to wear, since I generally use a thin fabric to line my masks. Once you've got the padding done, you're just going to start lining with the actual fabric you're using. I'm just using a black cotton fabric that I got from Walmart. It was like $6 for 2 yards. So, yeah. Just like with the felting, I start at the nose, glue it down, and you can really just watch my process here. It's kind of difficult to explain, but just make sure you're periodically gluing it, especially at any parts where like the planes of the face make a sort of corner, because that's where you're going to notice the fabric being loose. This is also when I add the teeth in before the lining. You can add them after, but I think it looks cleaner when you add them before. Once you have all of the edges glued down, you're just going to trim around it. I suggest gluing the edges a little bit away from the edge, if that makes sense, because you will be folding it over in order to make a cleaner edge. You want to make sure you're leaving open a gap at the cheeks for where you're going to put your elastic. I think I forgot to do this, so I had to kind of rip the fabric away from the cardboard, which isn't the greatest. So yeah, don't be me. You're going to fold down all your edges and glue them. You're also going to want to leave a little bit unglued at the top of it, because I like to add a cord that runs from the top of the mask to the elastic. It helps keep it from slipping down, especially if I'm moving around a lot or doing quadruplets. It's not completely necessary, it's just something I like to add. Do the eyes, it's pretty much the same as the way you did your felt. You're just going to cut it and glue it down, folding it over like the rest of your edges. Not the easiest thing to do. It's going to take some trial and error. This is part of why I don't like adding mesh to my eyes, because it makes it a lot harder to do this part. Mostly because I don't want raw mesh edges inside my masks. So yeah, just cut out the inside of the eyes, fold the edges over, and your lining is done. Now you are going to glue down your elastic. Make sure you measure how long it is by stretching it around the back of your head. You don't want it to be too long or too short. Too short's gonna give you headaches, and too long means it won't fit. You're going to want to glue it under the lining, which is why we left a little gap earlier, and glue the lining down on top of it. I didn't actually end up filming the top strap, because my phone died, but this is what it looks like. I also ended up sealing the nose and teeth with this Mod Podge sealant. Thank you for watching my video. I hope the tutorial was helpful for you, or if you're like me and you just like to watch tutorials with no intention of actually making the craft, then I hope you enjoyed it while you were drawing or doing your homework or whatever you do when you watch videos. I know it was quite long, but it was a labor of love. It took me all day to edit. So thank you again for watching it. Love you guys. This mask will be up on my Etsy for $60 USD, and the listing should be up by the time this video is posted. So if you're interested in this exact mask, then you can go check it out. Love you guys again, and get out!